Win big with new DRF All Access Past Performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code ONEFREEPP for a free single card today.
Dan Illman, Mike Beer, big card at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. Kentucky Derby points on the line and a return of a 2-year-old champion in the Grade 3 Holy Bull. It's race number 12. Let's take a look at this field. We're going 1 1/16 at Gulfstream Park, and Fierceness, last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, last year's 2-year-old champion, takes his first step for what Todd Pletcher hopes is the road to the Kentucky Derby.
Good spot to get this horse started back in, Dan, particularly based off what he did as a 2-year-old. I think there are some colts in here with some real potential, some real talent, but they better have him nailed on tight against Fierceness.
And he has speed. As we saw in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, we throw up the Timeform US Pace Projector. Fierceness can make the lead if he wants. Inveigled, the number 2, is kind of a quick little guy. And I know he's shown some tactical speed in his career, but he was quick enough to run a good second sprinting at Laurel 3 starts back. I think Arad's going to get aggressive with Inveigled, but the good news for Fierceness is, as we saw in the Breeders' Cup, he can sit just off the pace in second.
Yeah, they got to go forward with him in here. I mean, he doesn't need to make the lead in this race, but I'd be surprised if Johnny Velasquez was, getting too cute with this horse in the early stages of this race.
If the pace somehow gets electric, you might want to consider the unbeaten number 3, Otello, who has the LP flag designation, indicating the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. Hades is the number 1, a perfect 2 for 2 in his career for trainer Joe Orsino. This guy was versatile enough to win from off of the pace in his career debut, and then was a pace pressing winner against fellow Florida breds second time out. This pace was contested. It wasn't necessarily fast, and Hades is just too much for this field in the last 1/8 of a mile.
Yeah, true enough. I mean, I think you really have to like the way he finishes this race off, Dad. I mean, he puts in a big run from the top of the stretch to the wire here and leaves this field for dead. This is a very impressive win for this horse, I thought. And that comes off of a debut, which first of all felt like it was too short for him, but he also got bumped and carried in at the start. He wound up way at the back. So he had to overcome some trouble, and he did it. This is a tough spot for him. This horse has some talent.
Good inside post, good tactical speed. Paco Lopez figures to use it from the rail. Inveigled is the number 2. He was a winner at Gulfstream Park, going a 1-turn mile, 2 starts back, 4th last time out in the Mucho Macho Man. I have some questions about his ability to go 1 1/16. Personally, I think he might be more effective as a 7/8 1-turn mile horse, but he does have speed, and he's shown some tenacity in his career.
Yeah, he's very game, and he's got some likable qualities about him. And here, I'm with you. I didn't really love him stretching out again for this race, and I don't think he ran poorly in the Mucho Macho Man last time. I mean, he didn't get a perfect trip in there, but he didn't get a terrible trip either. And he just wasn't good enough to win that race.
Speaking of the Mucho Macho Man, the winner of that race, Otello, is back. He's perfect from 2 starts. He won his debut at Aqueduct going a 1-turn mile. Here's the Mucho Macho Man, and this is a really good learning experience for only his second lifetime start. He's in behind horses turning into the stretch. He still has some work to do. He's got to squeeze his way through, and once he does, he goes on to beat 3 of these. I think extra distance is what he wants.
Yeah, I like this performance from him too, particularly just because there was that point coming off the turn there, Dan, where he got behind that long shot. It was stopping in his face, and I just like the way he got around that horse, then got through the seam, and then closed the race down. It didn't come back very fast, but maybe it could have been faster if he had a perfectly clean trip in there. I like both of his races so far. Obviously, this is a way tougher test for him, but he's pretty good.
Dancing Groom is up next. This horse was 3rd behind Timberlake in the Grade 1 Champagne 2 starts back over a wet track, and his fans are going to say, well, we finished ahead of Fierceness that day, but Dancing Groom came back in his most recent start, the Kentucky Jockey Club, and he just didn't really fire his best shot. He's a 1-run closer that might need some pace help, Mike. Maybe the blinkers on will get him into the race sooner, but I think he'll be near the back of the pack early, hoping for that help.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, I know he's a Grade 1 placed horse, but he was well beaten that day in the Champagne, and his other races don't really do a lot for me. I mean, the only win so far, Dan, a race that was rained off the turf. There were no main track onlys in there. I don't know. I thought he was way up against it in here.
No More Time, the number 5, was a Facile winner of a 1-turn maiden special weight at Gulfstream at 1 mile, 2 starts back. Finished 5th in the Mucho Macho Man. He was pulling a little bit in the early part of that race. This is his second start off of a short layoff. I can see him settling into a good position, 3rd or 4th. Whether he can finish with a horse like Fierceness is another story.
Agreed. I mean, I think he will run better in this race, though. I mean, he got off to a very poor start breaking from the rail in the Mucho Macho Man last time. They sort of sat. They tried to sweep up on that field wide around the turn. He just flattened out at the end. but I don't think it was a poor performance at all. And when he broke his maiden, when they stretched him out two back, I thought he looked really good winning that race.
Domestic product goes out for trainer Chad Brown. Tyler Gaffalione, a winner of a maiden race 2 starts back, going 1.125 miles. He then ran in the Grade 2 Remsen last time out. The race was on a wet track. It was a track that seemed to favor speed types. Domestic product tried to rally from stalking range, tired pretty badly that day, but maybe just didn't like the wet track.
Maybe not. And he was, sort of in behind horses for a long way in there too. Then they just kept him under a hold, sitting and sitting and sitting. Then when they finally took him clear, he just sort of came up empty in there. I didn't love the trip he pulled, and maybe the wet track worked against him too. When you go back to the maiden win, two back, the first time they stretched him out, he looked really strong all the way around the track in that race. And I won't be surprised if Gaffalione's going forward from the start this time.
The horse that ran third in the Remsen came back to win the Jerome at Aqueduct with an 80 Beyer speed figure. Brown says domestic product's been working in company with the runner-up in the Remsen, Sierra Leone, who seems to be one of Chad's best 3-year-olds, if not his outright best one. Fierceness is up next. Let's take a look at his win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. It was just as good as his win at Saratoga, which I thought was the most impressive 2-year-old performance of the meet. He bombed in the Champagne over a wet track. We still don't know what happened that day. He was really good in the Juvenile, sitting just off the nice, easy pace, taking over in the stretch. And once he switched leads, that's a pretty good 2-year-old in Muth that he's putting the boots to here.
Yeah, I think a pretty good field of 2-year-olds overall in this juvenile. And he made it look very easy winning that race. And the best part of it was probably that last furlong that I really liked the way he finished that race off. The talent is obviously there. He comes back in a really good spot here. And he's going to be a super short price in this race, deservedly so.
I like that Todd didn't give him any more time off, got him right back to the work tab pretty soon after the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he's been working right along and figures to be tight for his 3-year-old debut. C-Streak is up next. We saw him finish third in the Mucho Macho Man after pushing the pace. This guy just draws a tough outside post position, especially with a horse with tactical speed like Fierceness, who figures to be gunned out of there. He's got to be wide going into the first turn, and I'm not sure he can afford any kind of trouble, whether it's path or being blocked in behind horses, if he's going to win a race like this.
Yeah, great. I don't love his last 2 races. That I mean, he's run fine in those races, but I didn't see excuses for him in there. And the more I look at him, the more I think he's a sprinter. I wait for them to cut this horse back in distance, see what he can do then.
Big card at Gulfstream Park during their championship meet on Saturday. Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 3 Holy Bull Stakes. We're both going to go with Fierceness in here. He's going to be a very, very short price.
I can't bet against him in this race. Dan, the 6 was the other horse for me, domestic product.
I'm curious to see how Hades does. It is a huge step up in class. I really like the way he finished off his most recent start. He's also stepping up in distance. 7-6-1-3 for Mike, 7-1-2-3 for me. The Grade 3 Holy Bull and the 3-year-old debut of Fierceness on Saturday. Good luck.